Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you what I've been working on recently, which is basically a Valheim-inspired kind of biome or word generation script. For now it's not in C++ or in Unreal Engine whatsoever, but I'm planning to make a full plugin out of it and upload it into the FAB marketplace. Now for the start I wanted to first create it in some kind of web compatible language, meaning that first I want to create a 2D image so I can see that how is the word generation going before I actually do that. If I make a full-blown C++ plugin out of it with extensive biome generation and assigning landscape and landscape layers and static meshes, trees, rocks, etc., that would not be a good debugging solution, because anytime I want to check how it generates, I would literally need to generate a whole big map, so it's not really an option. So first I wanted to create some kind of testing script out of it, which I can generate a 2D image, which is like a map, and I can see how it would generate basically. And that's why I created this kind of PHP script, which is, for now, it's 800 lines of code. And this is basically using FBM, so Fractal Brownian Motion, to generate, and it's using GD library. So if you're using PHP, need to enable in the php.ini need to enable uncomment the extension equals GD line. So how it goes is that we all know that in Valheim it generates this kind of large open world map, with the inner circle being kind of like a safe zone, with mostly meadows and black forest being dominant. And then you go out and you find more swamps with more and more plains biomes. And then as you go out, the north and the southern side is the ashlands in the north, with, of course, mistlands going into the picture wherever you reach the other kind of zones around. So that's kind of the inspiration behind it and how I intended to actually create the world map, because I was like, I need something like this because I also want my world to be basically a large and nice open world map with all kinds of different shaped islands, from small to medium to large islands, with all kind of procedurally generated biomes, because this is exactly what I want, a large open world which Runtime generates with a new game, and then that would be a full procedure generation. Now most procedure generations in Unreal Engine, when it comes to like YouTube videos, everyone does it in the editor, meaning everyone has their own plugin and everything, which is just in the editor, and you have a button where you click and it's like generate it, and then it's generated. And sure, that's not what I want. I want a runtime generation. And even the runtime generations are, like creating a runtime island or something. Nobody does this in real time, in runtime, in such large scale, explaining or making a plugin out of it to Unreal Engine. So I decided to actually start. Now for inspiration, I took this FBM Fractal Brownian Motion, which is a GitHub library here, which is called Island Mob Generator. And basically what it does is, let me play the MP4 file, right? It's actually, let's refresh this because it's got stuck. So how it goes is that, as you can see, it does a little bit similar things. So this is kind of where I got the inspiration for island shapes. It's using octaves, frequency, lacunarity, whatever that might be, persistence, scale, bias, etc. So that's kind of what gave me the inspiration to do something similar here. And in my code, at the top, we have some URL variables, so we can set the pixel width of the word generation itself, and then we can also set the starting island size, the noise amplitude from the URL, and then we have like static variables to set, which are a bunch of different stuff that how we can generate our world, limit the size to prevent server overload. And then you have the world parameters, so large island threshold. This is setting when it's considered a large island. It sets what should be a minimum amount of zones or biomes per large island, and what is the maximum per large island. A patch size basically, coastal line width. Now this is good. Coastal line is basically allowing you to have the white, which is supposed to be mountains, biome not touching the side of the island, meaning that it's always going to be in the middle. Well, because it's a mountain, so obviously just like in Valheim, it's usually in the middle or kind of central part of the islands and never really in the coastline. And that's exactly what it is. Basically, it's allowing a coastal line to be applied into like a small buffer zone around it, as you can see, so it never touches the side of it. And we can edit this with a simple variable also. Now we also have some more variables here. For example, the stage boundaries, which is equal now 0, 25, 5, 75, and 1.0, which is basically stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and the last one is stage 4. And you can set these circles. And by the way, on the top, if you set the zones enabled here, debug circle true, then it's actually going to show these circles. If debug circles false, then it will not show the circles, but we'll use them accordingly. And then you have some for the FBM noise configurations. So same you seen on GitHub: octave, frequency, persistence, lacunarity, scale, bias, island thresholds, and basically, like I said, it's an inspiration and took it from there. So that's kind of how it is. And then we also have some biome noise scale. The stages as they are, of course, these are the biome names. That's where you would rename them from biome 1 to meadows, black forest, mountains, swamp, plains, I don't know, mistlands, ashlands, you got the idea. Now the biome colors, how they would look like, and then yeah, the basic configuration. Now this is the stage, the biome chances. Now this is the main configuration. Basically this says that in the starting zone, stage 1, you should only have 55% chance of dominated by zone 1, which is meadows, and then 35% black forest, and then 10% mountains, and 0% chance of any other biomes. And that would kind of create this inner circle where the meadows is dominated, followed by black forest with occasional mountains. And that's exactly what this is, letting you options for 4 stages to set up each individual biome chance. What is the chance to be actually dominated, to be present, basically. Like in stage 4, I give no chance for any other domains other than or any other biomes other than biome 6 and 7, meaning that in the north part, as you can see, is only 6, and the south side is only 7. So it's not giving any options for any other islands biomes to be spawning. Now some starting island parameters. You can set the starting island size, which is going to basically set the starting island right here. How big is it? It's also going to set the buffer zone around it, meaning that what is the actual zone where it has to be some spacing in between the starting island and other small islands around it, so it never touches it. That's going to be the buffer zone here. The central meadows radius. Now this is basically says that in the crosshair middle, vertical and horizontal middle of the map, has to be a meadows circle. So a certain radius has to be zone 1. Because like just in Valheim, where you spawn your character in the middle of the map, you have to have around yourself a certain zone of zone 1. So you should not spawn your new players into Black Forest, obviously. You should spawn them into Meadows or whatever you call your first zone is. And that's exactly what it does, even if this would be, because as you can see from the line, this theoretically would be a Black Forest, but still is going to patch it with a zone 1 Meadows, because you have a certain Meadows radius in the middle. So that's kind of it for the whole setup. We can play with it. I'm actually going to do even more variables because I want to make sure that everything is set up by variables. So I have perfect generations. And the idea would be that I play with these until I see a really, really nice generation, like even try different seeds, like a dozen seeds. And if all of those seeds are generating nicely how I expected, then I take it and convert it to a C++, and then we can move on to actually generate the world. But first, I need to see it on a 2D world. Now, once we get over all the variables, the initial variables, we have a Perlin noise here that basically runs through it. And then we have a noise map, a small noise map like this. Word grid, initialize the word grid, and then we go into the determine land versus water using FBM noise, and then we're going to a buffer zone around the island, and this is for determine the stage of the pixel based on the distance from the center, and then clean small patches. So this one is cleaning small islands which are just like tiny dots and should not be generated according to size requirements. That's also going to be a variable, meaning you can set up the minimum threshold for an island. So if you don't want this small stuff to be spawning, then you just set it accordingly, and they won't be. And then yeah, respecting stage probabilities. We go to assigning biomes. Now this is which actually, because how it goes is first it's creating the landscape, creating land masses, island masses, and then it's assigning biomes to it. So that's kind of the whole idea. So yeah, this is kind of the generation itself. Again, a few hundred lines of code, biome assignment based on probability and based on the actual here the stages, so it respects the biome chances, but still giving a little bit of probability and chances into it. So assigning biomes, cleaning up small patches, yeah, it triggers those. And then final passenger, the central circle is always meadows, and disabling biomes from stage 4. Now this is what actually does that on stage 4, the north side is dominated by biome 6, and the south side is dominated by biome 7. Just like in Valheim, this is the north and this is the ashlands, right? So it's kind of similar to that. And then it does some clear outs, render the map actually, and then it echoes out everything accordingly, and then it's done. With some, of course, stuff if I like debugging stuff if I have something wrong, right? So currently it's 800 lines of code, 823 lines of code. It's slow, yes, it's PHP, I know that, but what I wanted to is I literally wanted to play with the whole noise, scale, FBM, you know, playing with stuff like octaves, frequency, persistence, and then just regenerating, and seeing how it turns out. And whenever I happy, I'm actually going to convert this to a C++ code, but there I'm not going to allow this to be modified. Or maybe I make a C++ script where I expose these as instance editable, and then in the editor you can actually play with this one before you actually spawn your island. That could be also a viable option. I'm not sure about how it will go. Now, of course, before I move into C++ and actually convert the whole code into a fully working C++ code, and by the way, currently I'm almost 1,000 lines of code. I still added a bunch of things inside. I'm not sure how it's going to work in C++. Hopefully way better, because it's a more performant language, of course. Not gonna be slow like a PHP conversion, generation. But yeah, you can work with the variables. So for example, the whole island generation is mostly determined by the FBM noise, meaning that these are the values that you usually kind of mess with it. So for example, if I lower this to 2.2, the frequency, then you're going to have less islands but larger islands, right? So lowering this value gives you like huge islands, kind of same shapes but larger islands, and genuinely kind of less but larger islands, right? So you can play with it. Let's increase to 3.2, and that will give you a slightly smaller but more islands in general, as you can see. In our case, I started with something like 4.2. I found that really kind of good in my sense. Yeah, this is kind of specifically because obviously this is going to be enlarged. So if I print this on 4K, for example, then it's already a little bit different. You know, it's just a 512 large version of it. So obviously, depending how large you imagine this, like if let's say this is a 5 minutes walkable from one side to the other, then considering island sizes like this, it's obviously absolutely fine, because we're talking about pixels here, but in reality these are not pixels. So and then of course you also have the south side and north side split, just like in Valheim. The other region have mostly kind of this plains biome, and you go inside, you got your kind of swamps and mountains, and then inside mostly a safe zone. So you get the idea. Feel free to kind of work with it and try stuff. Now, of course, you can also change other stuff. For example, you could lower the island threshold to, I don't know, 52 or something. That's also gonna change something. Persistent, lowering the persistent, or increasing the bias, for example. These are also, and of course, each of these are also working together, meaning that you change something in one place, other places will also react to it, right? So like right now, I just changed the island threshold from 0.52 to 0.55 to 52, but I can already see that kind of now the islands are a little bit, you know, more together, in a sense that you would not be able to travel by ship. You would need to go something like this across here to actually go, or you would need to, if this is something that you would need to do in your map, then sure, go for it. This is like, you feel free to play with it, you know. Or are increasing the bias, or let's say changing this persistency to 0.9 on top of this already decreased island threshold. Is also going to do something differently. Like, you need to play with this until you find an appropriate version that kind of works in your setup, right? Each game is different, but the FBM noise is a really good way of actually kind of play with this one until you find something good. And once you find something good, you also kind of need to test the seeds, right? So you actually need to go here, and then let's say you change this to something different seed, print it out, see how it works, do a dozen different seeds, check each of them how they look like, and once you generate a dozen seed and every single seed is appropriate for your needs and looks fine, and you're like, okay, I'm happy with it, that's where you actually move and implement it. Because in this case, the previous seed was kind of okay, but this one doesn't look that good. But obviously my setup wasn't this. My setup was actually, that was my default. So let's set everything back and see this seed, but with my original setup, how it looks like, right? Again, it's way better. So I did kind of try to precisely edit this in a sense that it's really good, and I'm going to a little bit fine tune it, but it's already at a step where you would just need to do like a 0.01 edit up or down, you know, and it's already going to do some stuff, right? So, and then here you would again, you could try different seeds because it's deterministic by seed. So just like any other seed-based games, it's all gonna be determined by the seed itself. Every seed is different, so every single time your new playthrough generated, everything going to be completely different, all based on the seed. As you can see now, of course, you see these lines, and these lines are kind of, you know, cutting everything and making like harsh kind of lines in between. For example, right here, or right here where it's cutting it down. But if I remove it, let's just remove it. What is it? Here, if you set this one to false, and then let's regenerate it. Now the circles are going to disappear, and then we can see a little bit better. Now, the lines in between different regions are not straight. These are going to be a little bit rigid, right? So it's never a straight line. It's more like a bit rigid line. As you can see here, it's a bit more, you know. So in zone 2, for example, we have some plains. So let's, where it goes, zone 2. We have some kind of biome 5 a little bit allowed here, but if we would want that to move out, then what we would do is we would just do, let's say, this one 0, and then this one, let's say 5, so we got 100 total. I refresh it, and that would mean that these ones are gonna be fully excluded from the middle zone, and now we are fully just, you know, swamp here, and then this is moved out. You get the idea. It's full up to you how you play with this one, but it's nice that you have now a script where you can actually generate a world map for yourself based on full mathematics, just like you want, and it can fit into any game. I mean, it's up to you where you implement it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I see you at the next one.